Welcome back, everybody. This is the third episode, if you like, of creating this particular cover. When we left, we were working on the Mermaid by Corey A. Ford, and we are going to continue our isolation of this particular image. You can't actually see the circumference of the eraser that I'm using. It's really tiny, but that's okay. And I'm trying desperately hard not to erase anything that the artist may have wanted to actually in the image. So it's really hard without being inside her head. Because the problem is when you buy beautiful, beautiful artwork like this, you don't want to wreck any of it. All right. So what we're doing is we're working our way through and we're creating this particular cover. As you can see, there are some strands of hair in there, which we don't want to lose. In order to be able to erase in this section, what I've done is I've used a square and I've actually drawn a box. So everything inside this box will be erased, but if I use the eraser over here, as you can see, nothing happens. Okay, so what I was doing was using a small width of eraser in order to get in close without destroying the outline of the actual work itself. The initial cut I used doing pixel selection and just erasing any color pixels from the background that weren't in the image. Then when I got to here, I noticed that there were glowing spots or little dots. That meant that if I erased that, I would actually be erasing some of my image. So to give you an idea, this is your pixel selector. If I select a pixel, everything that's got the little outlines on it will be erased, and this includes some of the feathers that I want to be able to keep from the image itself. So we're just going to go back into select and we're going to go select none. So what we're doing now is we're actually going to be very cautious about what we're erasing out of this picture and hopefully not erase anything that will ruin the effect. So we go into the eraser again. I've been using a small size one. To use the eraser, you select it up here. You select in your brushes. You select a brush to use. Be aware your brushes, if you've been cutting pictures out, it will default to the last image that you cut out, and that will be the shape you erase with. So I could have been erasing with a spaceship. Let's not do that. Control Z. So I've chosen this. It's a much smaller erase. Now you see I've actually increased the size. So the circle that you see on the screen there is how big the eraser is now. And this is really good for erasing large areas. So you erase by literally holding down the left mouse button and just scribbling. And you can see very much why I didn't want to do that anywhere near those feathers. The other thing is all of that scribble that I've just done counts as one move. So if I Control Z, it all comes back. Fortunately, if I Control Y, it all goes away again. So let's just grab our size over here. This is how you work out your brush. Our opacity is at 100%, so that means everything we do is going to go. Everything we cover with the eraser is going to be erased. I'm just going to drop our brush size down to about, yeah, that's a bit better. So as we're moving closer to the image where we don't want to actually accidentally erase anything. So yeah, this is all one mouse click, so I'm playing with fire here. We can use a smaller brush size to hopefully prevent having accidents, and that's the other reason why I've also chosen something with soft edges. It means I can bump the edge of the image without actually destroying anything. Hopefully. Okay, and you'll notice as I get close, I'll just lift my finger off the left mouse button so that it doesn't all go to one thing. Okay, I'm going to leave those little bits there and I'm going to take that bit out. Now I'm going to drop the size of my eraser again as I head into this area here. Actually, I probably could have kept that bit that large one for this bit, but that's okay. Let's just lift the mouse. Okay. So holding down the left mouse button will give you a continuous stroke. That will all count as one action for the purpose of undoing it. I'm actually just going to make that size ratio a little bit bigger. Okay, that's a bit better. So if you're doing covers and you've got a lot of elements in there that you want to add, just be aware it's not going to be a quick process. Nothing worth doing or having actually ever is a quick process. Writing a novel, for example, or working out to try and get your words right for a poem, putting together a collection of stuff, none of it is going to be a quick process. But if that's what you want to do, it's worth doing. All right, so this is, I'm fairly happy with how her feathers look now. And once I shrink that down to go on the cover, it'll be quite unnoticeable if there's any little bits that aren't perfect. Actually, having said that, I am going to just work that little bit in a bit more. Okay. The next thing we do is grab our magnifying tool, hit our zoom out, and just see where else we need to work. So for instance, I do need to get rid of all of that. That fortunately is an easy fix because I can just highlight all of that, grab my eraser, make it huge, and clean everything up in here. Now you'll notice that only the stuff inside this dotted line is vanishing. If I move it outside the dotted line, I don't lose anything. So this is another way that you can just ensure that you don't erase anything that you really want to keep. I am going to make my eraser size a bit smaller because I tend to forget to go back and shrink it and check where it is when I do these bits here. So we'll just grab here and we'll take out that section there. So actually I didn't need to shrink that eraser after all. Just bring it up a bit. And we'll just go nuts in this section here. And then we'll move our box down to here, grab our eraser. Given that the background of the cover is quite blue, I probably don't need to be so thorough about what pixels I remove from the background. However, if I was thinking of using this image again, it would be really important that I made sure that the background was perfectly clean. This looks really awesome. You could almost imagine her doing magic with that. But, however, it is not something that we're going to keep as part of this section. So I'm going to grab here. We're just going to come right into the edge of that feather there. We use our massive eraser and pretty much take out all of that. And then I'm going to box in. I like to overlap the areas that I box. So we'll just go here. Again with the eraser. And then I'm going to box over here. I'm not sure if this is actually any quicker than having gone around it, but I think the cut that I get by doing it this way is a lot cleaner. So the time and the effort is worth it. I've just shrunk my eraser down really small because we're about to start working in close to the image and I don't want to mess anything up. Just reduce my capability for marking it up. We're also going to grab our magnifying glass and zoom in on this section. Use our scroll button to move up and down. To move across, you need to use the slide bar. Okay, and if you'll notice, I've missed a little bit up the top, so what I might do is shrink my box just a little bit. Make sure I get those blue bits right at the top. Okay, now eraser. It is definitely small enough. Just see how big that is. Okay, it's just under the circle, so that's fine. I'm just going to bring it in fairly close around the fingertip there. That's it. Lift the mouse button so that if you make a mistake on this section, you don't lose the bit you just did. That's all good. Make sure you get rid of those little bits of white. I could have erased the white and gotten rid of the colour in her eyes, or some of the sections in her eyes, but I really didn't want to do that because, like I said, you don't buy beautiful artwork just to slice out bits willy-nilly. You think about it first. You think about what you're going to keep and what you're not. Alright, to get a finer cut in that area, I'm actually going to have to shrink this down a little bit more. So what I'll do is I'll do the bits I can do using the larger brush. And yeah. Hopefully. Just get that, move that up there. You'll notice I did go over some areas there with my brush, but that's fine. Just trying to work out here which bits are meant to stay and which bits aren't. I'm going to use a really small brush to outline it. I have my Control Z finger hovering. So I'm thinking this section here has to go. Yeah, but I'm also thinking all right, it's not exactly what the original art was, but that's okay there. And just go this way. Okay. Yep. All right. So that's that section there. Now we just need to move the working piece down. Okay. Just scroll. And we're going to grab our square tool and just move. There's a little bit of white over in that corner, so I am playing with fire because I'm highlighting a very big chunk of picture I don't want to erase, but I do want to get rid of this. This part I'm happy with, so we're going to leave that as that. And I'm just going to take out these tiny little bits here. And hopefully, that's it there. Again, when you're working with it, remember that when you're holding the mouse button down, every action while that mouse button is held down counts as one action. So if you do a big swathe of stuff while holding it down, you're going to lose it all if you mess it up and have to erase it. Oops. Control Z. Control Z will undo whatever you've done that you didn't like. There we go. And using the smallest brush size possible will hopefully mean you avoid taking out any bits of picture that you actually wanted to keep. Now, the reason I'm playing with fire is because if I slip now, I'm going to actually take out a chunk of arm, which I don't want to do. So we're just going to go down here like this. Okay, and we go across here like this. And around. We go down along the top like this. All right. So in between each movement here, each time I move a location, I'm actually lifting my finger away from the mouse button every time I stop and pause. And that way I'm hoping to minimize my need to undo large chunks of stuff. So this is isolating an image in GIMP. In another method, it's different to the way we used for the spaceship, and it's also different for the way we used for the dragon. If you're doing a lot of it, now that I know that you can actually isolate using pixels, I'll be buying a lot more of my artwork with white backgrounds. Although there are some images, very much like this mermaid image, that I would probably buy two images, one with the white background for isolation, but one with the coloured background in case I want to use the whole thing for a book cover. So that's now within my budget to do. When I initially started, this sort of image was definitely not within my budget to do. I was just wondering whether or not I should take out some of that section, but I'm going to leave it in. Hopefully I've interpreted the original intention correctly. All right. I'm going to have to go back there with a fine brush. Now what we're going to do is just increase the circumference of our eraser just a little bit, because we're now working into areas where we're not as likely to take out an edge, and that's one of the reasons we did the outlining of the edges, so that we didn't mess that up. It's still worth lifting your finger off that left mouse button at regular intervals, because everyone slips like that, and you don't want to lose half an hour's worth of erasing if you can possibly avoid it. And just remember that as long as you're working inside that square that you outlined, your eraser is going to work. So don't go too nuts with the scribble movement, otherwise you could end up losing a lot more than you intended. All right, so that pretty much is that section there. Let's just scroll down. We've got a ways to go, as you can see. We're going to make the size of our brush small again. Actually, there was something up here I wanted to do. Oh yeah, with a smaller brush. I wanted to get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so we come down to here for our magnificent mermaid, and we have to move our square, otherwise it's not going to work. Grab the corner, just move your way. I'm actually going to go down a little bit further. Yep, to about here. Seriously. Right, let's draw that square again, because I messed that up. Okay. Actually, really, I only need to do this section here. I don't need to highlight any there and risk losing it. Down into the eraser, check the size, make sure I've got the right brush. I'm actually going to give myself a bigger margin for error by making softer edges. Wow, that's too big. Where's my size button? You also notice that you have two forms that the pointer can take. There's this one over here in the corner near size, where it's like two little arrows going in one direction or not. That's not the most effective way to move it. You can actually just move it until you get like one single up arrow, and that will give you your ability to move the slider. That should be okay. No, it's not okay. Control Z and Z and Z. Okay, I took out some of her fin. I don't like doing that. That bit I can live with. I just need to, work my way back along here. Okay. Again, try lifting that mouse button at regular intervals, otherwise you'll do what I just did and lose a bit of stuff that you didn't want to lose through. Oops. It's also important to take regular breaks. Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to use a bigger eraser just for this section. Just grab our size and move it up. Yep, that should be big enough. Actually, hang on a minute. I think I see something else I shouldn't get rid of. That looks pretty deliberate there. Okay, let's just increase our brush size a little bit less than what we're going to. Or a little bit more than that. Basically, I'm just going to scroll up. Oh yeah, I see. Wow, I nearly took out something I shouldn't have. Just grab all of that there. That would have looked odd too. Okay. Just take that section there. Okay, lift mouse button. All right, I was going to go nuts. Whoops, Control Z. And take out all of this section here, and I'm really glad that I've scrolled up to see. It doesn't change where your box sits, so it doesn't change what you're going to erase, but it does change your perspective of what you need to erase. Okay, I can use a slightly bigger brush in this section. Okay, that's not slightly. Oops, Control Z. Just get rid of this part here. And that part there, we shrink it down again. I'm actually going to leave some of that waveriness in because it's gorgeous. Yep, I'm going to leave that in as well. But I'm going to take that bit out. Okay. So that is pretty much our mermaid isolated. We're just going to zoom out again. Just roll it up. Okay, now I didn't change the size on that, so that is actually perfectly well for me to go save. And then for me to go close. This is where we want her to be. As you can see, she's around the wrong way, so to speak. We're going to go File, Open as Layers, grab our isolated mermaid. There she is. The first thing we're going to do is flip her. So we make sure that she's selected in the layers bar, and then we go for our flip tool, which is here. And then we're just going to hit flip, and I've got another floating selection. Man, I hate these things. So Control Z, because floating selections are a pain. I'm going to try something different with this layer then. We're going to go to Transform, and we're going to go Flip Horizontally. Alright, so if you use the shortcut tools over here, you're going to tend to get floating transformations, but if you go directly into the Layer tab and do what you want to do from inside the Layer tab using your Transform tools or your Transparency tools or whatever, you'll tend not to get that very irritating floating layer. I just want to have a look at the size I used. Alright, I think I shrank her down a little bit as well. So I'm just going to grab my move tool, which is the little bar here. And the trick is when you click on an image or a section or a layer to move it, to know you've selected it, you've got to have that solid line outside. So if when I click here, I get a solid line around the layer that I want to move. When I clicked over here, I got a solid line around the actual picture itself, the whole base layer of the image, and that I don't want to move. So just be careful when you're moving your layers that you click on it and the right one is selected. So if I was to keep her at the same level without shrinking her down, I would actually put her about here. As a matter of fact, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do because she looks quite good. So after this, once you've got all your different elements of your image in, really it's just a matter of moving things around. So here I'm going to click here, and as you can see, the dragon layer is highlighted. I'm going to move him up and away a little bit. And actually I might try rotating him, and hopefully I won't get the dreaded transform layer. No, that's the mermaid. Let's go over to the dragon. We shall rotate. Alright, too bad. We're not going to do that because I'm sick of playing with floating layers. Okay. He hates them, my precious. So we grab the spaceship and we're going to move that. Sometimes the reason you might move something is if you have a look at where your title is, if you've got a lot of white in your image and you put it behind a white title, you can't read that very well when it's in thumbnail. So I'm actually just going to try and shift this starship a little bit so that the word fiction isn't obscured by the jets. That seems to be about the best we can do there. I'm actually going to grab the background layer. Actually, yes. And I'm going to see what happens when I hit brightness and contrast on it. And we're going to play with the contrast again. And hopefully that'll give us, okay, don't know if I like that. You can go really, really crazy with it. Yeah, that just gives me too much. All right, so we're going to hit cancel on that and leave it as it was. I'm just going to grab that background layer and select none for the minute because I want to see where it's sitting in relation to the actual image itself. All right, so if I click up here, cancel, move tool, let's just move it, hopefully, so it sits properly inside the boundary, because I do have a black background as well, so it does make it occasionally hard. So that is pretty much where I'm going to leave this cover. That's how I've gone from a cover where I just had the background of the lightning. So if I turn all of these off, you can see where I was at when I started. That's what we started with, and this is what we've ended up with. So I hope that's helped you with your own cover making or with your own use of GIMP. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll catch you later. There is, of course, one final thing I should mention before I go, and that is that this is an XCF file. You cannot use it or upload it or put it anywhere. It only works in GIMP. So before you finish your artwork, what you really need to do is go File, Save, and I should have been saving a separate image for each step, so I should have actually saved Upgrade 1 Start, Upgrade 1 Dragon, Upgrade 1 Mermaid, Upgrade 1 Spaceship, and that would have shown me the different steps that I'd taken as I'd gone through. But more importantly than that, if you actually want to be able to upload it or insert your image into a Word document or whatever, you're actually going to need to have it in a JPEG or a PNG file. So you save it, you go down to Export. Now, GIMP will automatically try and export it as a PNG file, and what I found with PNG files is that they tend to be much bigger than JPEG files, which means that you will have your perfect image, you'll go to upload it, and then you'll discover that it's too big for the site that you want to upload it to. So all you need to do is you just go up to the top here and you change that end PNG to JPG. Make sure you leave the little full stop thing in, otherwise it's not going to work. And that's pretty much that. The other thing I forgot to mention when I started out is that you have a minimum resolution that you need to upload your files with. And that minimum resolution is 300px. So when you create an image in GIMP, and I will go over this when I'm creating a new cover, but when you create an image in GIMP, you're going to need to make sure that your image resolution is at 300px or higher. So if you have a look at this image, I'll go to image, go to scale image. You'll notice that the resolution is at 300. Usually I set them for 600, but we'll leave this one as it is. Okay, and that really is everything. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll catch you all when I do the next cover.